Hello, today I'm doing a book review on Behind Closed Doors by B.A. Paris. This is actually not the first book I've read by her, but it is the first book she ever wrote. The first one I read by her, it was called The Breakdown. I actually listened to that on audiobook and I enjoyed it a lot. So I was excited to read this. This book came out in 2016. It is 293 pages long and it currently has a 3.96 average rating on Goodreads, which shocks me a little bit, and we'll get into that. If you're not really familiar with how Goodreads works, anything around a 4 is usually really good. So 3.96, that's pretty high. Not sure if I agree with that. I'm gonna introduce the book, tell you just a smidge what it's about, and then I'm gonna spoil the whole thing. So don't watch this if you want to read it, but I'm just going to tell you exactly what happens and then my thoughts about it. So if you don't want it to be spoiled for you, I'll just tell you right now, I didn't love it. And I can't really get into why I didn't love it without talking about the whole plot. So I'm going to do that right now. The main characters in this book are a married couple called Grace and Jack. Oh, look, the tagline for this book is The Perfect Marriage or The Perfect Lie. Grace and Jack have been married for a little over a year, and we find out pretty quickly that Jack pretty much manipulated and tricked Grace into marrying him. They had a very fast courtship. It was 5 months before he proposed. They got married really fast. Turns out when they're on their honeymoon, Grace is so obsessed with this guy. When they're on their honeymoon, she kind of finds out that he is a huge monster and married her for other reasons, which I will get into in a second. But basically, he is a psychopath and this is kind of where I already am starting to have an issue with the book when I'm reading, is it's I don't really get his motivations. I guess how they met was that Grace has a sister with Down syndrome named Millie, and I'll get into, I have issues with that too. He's really nice to her in the park one day, and that's how they start dating and they get married. And Jack says that this whole time he's had a plan to marry Grace so that one day Millie will move in with them and he has her as a pawn, I guess, to torture. So Jack really just wants to have a prisoner to continuously torture because he's a sadist or something. I'll talk about the good things about this book first. One, it's less than 300 pages. It's a really quick read. I didn't finish it very fast because honestly, I wasn't super invested in it. Took me a week to get through, but I feel if I had had more time, I would have finished it in a day or two, and it keeps you interested for sure. I wanted to know how it ended, but it wasn't as soon as I got home, I wanted to sit down and read it. It was more I should probably finish this type of read. Those are kind of the only two good things I can think of for this book, or at least that I have written down in my notes about this book. Let's get into the cons, and to me, there are plenty. I like it in a book where you can when you get emotionally attached to the characters. And in this book, I felt absolutely no emotional connection to Grace. I didn't feel bad for her. I mean, I felt bad for her, but I didn't. We have almost no background on her, and I don't really care about her character that much, which makes it hard to care about what's happening to her. And another thing that's hard to get invested in this book is that we don't know a ton about Jack or why he is like this. We get a 2-sentence explanation, basically, that when he was younger, he murdered his mom and liked it. And that's the only background information we get about why he is like this. He is keeping Grace as a prisoner in his house. She is locked in a room all day. She doesn't have a job. She doesn't have a phone. He decides when she eats. He decides what she can wear. When they do go out with friends, whenever she tries to ask or signal for help, he's oh, I'm sorry, she's mentally ill. She's crazy. And that's kind of this whole book. It gets a little repetitive. The entire plot up until the end is basically Grace trying to escape, but Jack is always one step ahead of her, whether that is going to the doctor. She tries to tell the doctor that this man is keeping me prisoner, and he goes, oh, well, I see here that you actually have a history of mental health, and that you've tried to pull this before. And so yeah, basically she's trying to escape, but Jack is always one step ahead of her and always outsmarting her or predicting what she's going to do next. Okay, another big issue I had with this is that Grace has a sister named Millie who has Down syndrome. And the way they portray Millie is that she's like this big dumb, like, I don't, like the way it's written is that like Millie can't even talk in full sentences. And it's like, that's not necessarily true about people with Down syndrome. They make her seem kind of, like she does this one really clever thing in the book. And Grace, her sister, was like, oh my God, Millie, you're so smart. I can't believe that you could do this. And it's like, yeah, she has Down syndrome. She's not an idiot. Like, I felt at times like they were, like Millie was just this stupid person. I know that it's just a book, but it bothered me how she was portrayed, how a person with Down syndrome was portrayed in this book as like a burden, kind of. So this is marketed as a thriller, and honestly, it's not thrilling. It is kind of boring. Nothing about it was scary, because even though Grace is being held a prisoner, there's nothing that Jack really does to her that's that awful. He withholds food. He, doesn't let her have anything to read. So she's like trapped in a room alone all day, but he never like assaults her. He never does anything that bad to her. So when it says like it says right on here, like unsettling, addictive, this will terrify you, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I wasn't really terrified. Jack wasn't that scary. I don't know. I thought it was, as far as a thriller goes, it was really boring. Okay, I'm going to spoil the ending. Huge, huge spoiler. In the end, Grace ends up killing Jack. And she thinks to herself, this is the only way I can get out of here, because he's so smart. He will always be one step ahead of me. I have to just kill him. And she ends up locking him in this basement room that only opens from the outside. And this is where he's planning to put Millie when she moves in with them. And so she tricks him, locks him in there, and then goes to Thailand and pretends like everything is fine and is constantly calling his phone like, honey, where are you? Kind of like setting up an alibi and whatever. And Jack eventually dies. He is found dead in their home. And then Grace has to act all shocked, like, what? How could this happen? Because she knows that if she ever tells the police the truth, that she will be put in jail for murder, because obviously she has a huge motive to kill someone if you're a prisoner in your own house. So she decides to, instead of killing him and going to the police and telling what happens, killing him to make it look like a suicide. But the police are right away very suspicious, because she does drug him with pills that Millie got for her, which is the smart thing that Millie does, but not enough to kill him. So she drugs him and then tricks him into going into this room and slamming the door shut. So Jack actually ends up dying of dehydration. And there's like all these stupid things that she did that obviously implicates her in the murder. Like, for example, her DNA is all over that room. He didn't take enough pills to kill himself, like not even close to enough. So he obviously came to. And then there's like, he tried to escape, obviously. So there's like evidence of him trying to get out of that room. Like, it doesn't look like he wanted to kill himself. And okay, and the ending of this book is kind of what saved the whole thing for me. Up until the end, I was like, this is kind of boring. Like, she's trying to escape, she's trying to escape, she's trying to escape. And it's like the whole plot. And then in the end, she has lunch with this friend of hers after Jack is found dead. She has lunch with this friend of hers named Esther. Esther's one of the friends that Jack like allows her to have. Like, they go to dinner parties and stuff together. And anyway, Esther, without outright saying, kind of says, I've known for a while that there is something wrong, that there's something wrong with Jack. She basically says, I know you killed him, and I'm going to make sure that you don't go to jail, and I'm going to say whatever it is you need me to say to help you cover up this murder. And, that ending was so good. And I think that for that reason, I gave the book 3 stars instead of 1 or 2, because I was like, okay, I really liked that ending a lot. Jack has this whole facade about Millie is going to move in with them after she graduates high school, and he has a whole room set up for her. Millie's favorite color is yellow, but he set up this like dungeon for her in the basement, which is where he ends up actually dying, which is kind of ironic. That is, the walls are all painted red, and it's just really scary. And the last line of the book, I think Esther goes like, what color was Millie's room? Because she's asking, like, that room was meant for Millie, wasn't it? The one that Jack died in. And Grace goes, Millie's room was red. And Esther goes, that's what I thought. And I'm like, oh, that is such a good ending. I loved the ending. Esther figured it out. She figured it out without Grace having to tell her anything. The ending saved it for me. But other than that, didn't love this book. I wouldn't really recommend it. It's not really a thriller. It's kind of just boring. The breakdown by this author was really good. It was also about a manipulative husband, which I think maybe be a theme with this author. Behind closed doors, it was fine. I don't know what I'm gonna read next. School is kicking my butt, so I'll probably just pick something off my shelf that I haven't gotten to yet and hopefully have a little better time than I did with this one. But yeah, that's all I got. Goodbye.